Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon, but it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes! Oh, thank you for that. At this point, I've interviewed about 200 people, give or take. And everyone has their own unique story. Every person is unique. But every so often, I come across somebody that's, like, unique in being unique. And this was no exception. I just got done talking to a Navy SEAL. He's retired, and he put together a photo book. It's called Uncommon Grit by Darren McBurnett, otherwise known as McB. And it's awesome. This guy has stories, and he's been through things that I don't know if I know anybody that rivals what he's accomplished and what he's been through. And he's unique in the sense also in that he's the only one that has the type of footage that he has that's actually authorized. He was authorized to create these images during SEAL training and publish them. I really, really encourage you to have a seat, or if you're on a walk or whatever, kick back and listen to this amazing interview and check this guy out. Be sure to click the links in the description where you can go find more about McB and where you can go check out this book. You will not regret it. It's an awesome photo book with some great writing too, as you'll hear in our conversation. Enjoy.
Again, thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here. Darren McBurnett is my name. I've been gone by McB pretty much my entire SEAL career, and McTeams. And so actually it's funny about my nickname McTeams. Rob O'Neill gave me that nickname back when we were doing platoons together. And, you know, he's a SEAL that killed Bin Laden. He's still one of my dearest friends today. So even my Instagram handle is McTeams3842. It's basically because of Rob.
So he gave you the nickname. What's the nickname come from specifically?
McTeams, it was like, you know, McB, just, and then of course we're in the SEAL teams, and then I always called him Nizro, Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill, and he'd just call me McTeams, because we went from like SEAL Team 2, I buzzed SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 4, and that time it was like kind of unheard of to go switching teams back in the late 90s. So it just say McTeams. I'm like, it's like, I remember we're like, hey, we're going to be over to SEAL Team 4. It's like, yeah, it's another team. What do you think of that, McTeams? And then we just kept that going.
Is that a progression? Because aren't there, like, how many teams are there? Are there just different teams, or is it a progression in teams? Help me with that a little bit.
It's back and early on. There's a history of the SEAL teams, but started out with the NCDUs, the Scout Raiders, and World War II. Then that went to underwater demolition teams, and there's only two of them. It was SEAL Team 1 and 2. One was on the West Coast, and 2 was on the East Coast. And as Vietnam went on, I think in the 80s, SEAL Team 3 was born, and then shortly after that, SEAL Team 4, and then shortly after that, SEAL Team 5. Then SEAL Team 6, and then SEAL Team, and then we had SEAL Team 8. And so now we have on the West Coast, we have SEAL Team 1, 3, 5, and 7, and SEAL Team 17, which is a reservist SEAL team. And on the East Coast, we have 2, 4, 8, 10, 6, 8, and 10. And that's how it breaks down. And the numbers of each SEAL team back in, like, I would say back in my day,
Right.
They all were your area of operation. So your AOR. So SEAL Team 2 was Yukon, the Yukon theater. So basically did everything in Europe. Like another example, SEAL Team 4 was Southcom. So they did all operations down in South America. And that's how each SEAL team is broken up. Like SEAL Team 3.
So they're regional, right?
Yeah.
They're not, it's not a hierarchical structure.
Oh, it's it's nope. It's all area of operation, and SEAL Team 3 was CENTCOM, which is the Middle East. But as we progressed more in the 2000s, and we, start having the battle spaces is in Afghanistan, Iraq, a little after Kosovo, and then, then Africa. And so then you had 6, each SEAL team has 6 platoons. And so what we started doing was your one platoon would go to your AOR, and the other 5 would divide up between Afghanistan and Iraq. So that's all it was.
For SEAL Team 6 is a name that some people are familiar with, obviously, because of what they accomplished with bin Laden. So to get this straight, they happened to get that call because that happened to be in their AOR. Is that right?
No, SEAL Team 6 is SEAL Teams is what's called Development Group. And that was formed in the 80s by Dick Marcinko. And they actually started out as a hostage rescue, believe it or not. It's like they highly trained for that. And then as, SEAL Team 6 or Development Group started developing, now they started doing a lot of other things that conventional SEAL teams didn't do. And so that's why when, the big missions like, bin Laden raid come up, SEAL Team 6, because they're highly trained. They're more specialized trained than the rest of the
okay. Right.
So
let me ask you this. I want to know a little bit about you personally.
Oh, yay.
Go back to your mindset before you even joined up, right? Before you even enlisted, before that, where were you at in your head? Where were you at in your life? Like before that happened, who were you?
Oh boy, that's a deep question. But oh boy, here we go. And do I need to lie down on the couch?
Well, I've gotten that before, but I want to know who you were before that happened, because I have a strong sense, and I could be wrong about this, and you can correct me, but I have a strong sense that there is a profound before and after for a lot of guys, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Before they experience that training and everything that comes with it, and then on the other side of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was, I'm telling you, if you wanted to, before the Navy SEAL season, if I stayed the before McBee, I'm pretty sure if those conversations what we just had, I probably would open up a comic book store. I probably would have been like something out of Big Bang Theory, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Because that was my mindset. But I did a lot of athletics. I did marathons, I did triathlons, in college, I did rowing, I did cycling team, I did water polo. In high school, I did track, cross country, indoor track, swimming. I did, in high school, I did my first Ironman when I was 17 years old. I did like the Boston Marathon, the Cape Cod Marathon. I did hundreds of triathlons.
So you were in really good shape already.
Yeah, I was a good swimmer. Yeah, I was a good swimmer, good runner.
Right.
So I was already in shape. So I probably would have been an in shape guy with a comic book store.
Right. Which would have been weird.
Yeah. I'd be like, wait, what's going on with this guy? And like, But
when you went into training, were you already? I mean, let me ask you this: are a lot of guys that go into the SEALs or go into the training? Are they in good shape already?
Yeah, you'll be. Each person that got into the SEAL teams has kind of like their own path. For mine, it was when I joined the Navy, because I graduated from pre-university. And of course, I had a liberal arts degree. So what that means is I knew just enough about everything, but not enough of anything to do anything.
Right. Yeah, I know how that is. I know a little bit about that myself.
So I joined the Navy simply because I wanted to pay back a few student loans. I didn't really have very many, but also I needed structure. My dad was in the military. My grandmother was even in the military. My grandfather was in the military. So I have a big history in our families. And so it's kind of like I knew that was going to be what I was doing. And so I joined the Navy because my dad joined the Navy. And plus, the movie Top Gun was really cool. So, there's an influencer there. But I wanted to be Goose. I want to be Goose. I want to be that guy because I kind of looked like him. I was like skinny and, nerdy. But I joined.
I always liked Iceman.
Yeah, Iceman. Oh, he was, management expectations. He was way too cool for me. I'm like, I couldn't be him if I wanted to be him. So I keep him a little more realistic. I'm more a Goose.
You're a Goose guy. Low bar for you to begin with.
Just said it, just to throw that out.
Oh man, that's so great. Well, that makes sense, yeah, and that resonates with me during that time period too. So you go, okay. So tell me this: you join the Navy, but then how do you go from the Navy to the SEALs?
Well, see, that was really interesting. So in the Navy, you have what's called physical readiness tests. Okay. And when I joined the Navy, I had, of course, really fast swim and run times. My swim time was extraordinarily fast. So the average swim time for the Navy for your 500-meter swim, basically underwater recovery stroke, which is breaststroke and side stroke, is about 10 minutes. 9.5 to 10 minutes is the average. And I did mine in like 5.5. So because I was a swimmer. I did triathlons.
How do you average like 100 meters every minute? How do you average 100 meters every minute? How do you do that?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make.
Well, I basically swam all throughout high school and college, so to me it was easy. But the interesting part is like, hey, so I went. So the Navy has career counselors, just like in college, and they're there to make sure that the Navy can utilize what you have, your abilities, the best as the Navy can possible. So it puts you in a job that best suits you and to the Navy, and that's what I enjoyed about the Navy. And they'll send you out to different schools. They're called A schools or C schools, and to build you up and to best benefit the Navy. And so when I went to see my career counselor, because I started out as a corpsman, like a medical guy, and they said, hey, you've got really fast swim times. It's like, hey, we got a program you might like to try. And I was like, what's that? They're called the SEAL teams. And of course I giggled. I'm like,
right.
It's like, no, doesn't that sound cute?
Right. And, I'm a goose, man. I'm goose. I'm not Maverick.
Yeah. What the SEAL team? What the hell's that? And he goes, this is what he says. You'll love this. This is how I really got bamboozled. I said, they're awesome. They swim all day and scuba dive.
So that's how they describe the SEALs. So you didn't know what the SEAls were, is what you're saying. You were legitimately kind of giggling at the name.
Yeah, because it was funny. And this is 94,
right?
And so I didn't really know. So this is like way early on.
Right.
I think the internet was invented 2 years prior. So
I got my first email address in 1994.
Oh boy! That. I mean, not very many people had computers. It's like, so you didn't.
Right.
God forbid you go read about something in a library. That'd be crazy. So.
Right.
That's. But anyway, so.
So they tell you that you're going to do a lot of swimming and scuba diving and make it sound like a trip to Bali.
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought. It's like, wait a minute, I can do laps all day, like swim team, of course, and then, you get a scuba dive like something in Jamaica and Nassau. And, I'm like, who doesn't want to do that? Sign me up. But this is one of my first lessons in the Navy that I learned. Work smarter, not harder. Because this is what he was doing. His job is to get people where they need to be in the Navy. But however, he has a lot of work to do that. He has to type it all out. He has to make phone calls with bases and ships all over the world to find a job for you. And then he's got to send you someplace. He's got to cut orders, and it's a lot of work. However, if you send somebody when I was in California at the time at San Diego, it's like he can write orders to somebody across the street. And then, of course, I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, but beknownst to him, BUDS, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, has like a 90% failure rate. You just pass on and somebody else can deal with it. So, so he was like, oh yeah, go, bam. And so I go on my merry way, show up. And then of course, when I get there, it's like, I walk in the front door and then you see this big hulking of a man of instructor walking right at me with tight little UDT shorts on. The first thing that comes to mind is grape nuts, and he's got a big mustache and he's just like, what the hell? Get off my court again. He's just yelling at me. And I'm like, oh, really? Geez. And then this is kind of funny. Right off the bat. And he goes, hit the surf, you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it means. So I'm like, of course I asked the question, well, what does that mean? So that's the first thing I did wrong is I asked a question. So that was bad. So he told me. And then this is where this is the second thing I did wrong. I asked him where the locker rooms were so I can change out of my uniform into like swimming trunks to go hit the surf, which is basically run all the way out to the ocean, get wet, and run all the way back. And so that didn't last long. So that was the first impression that I made at BUDS. So I learned my valuable lesson number 2. Whenever you're at BUDS, don't ever ask a question. They always tell you, hey man, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's like, yes, there is. At SEAL training, yes, there is.
Lots of them.
Lots of them. Don't just keep it to yourself. You know?
Okay, so but in all right, so I get all that, and I can appreciate that on some level too. It makes sense to me, especially in that environment. But for myself, what if I really don't know what's going on? Do you guess? Do you do you do something?
Yeah, you just follow the crowd. You know, you just
You follow everybody else.
Follow the crowd.
Sure.
What are we doing? You know, and that's just the way, you know, because everyone there looked like they belong. I was just, you know, remember, I literally look like Goose, but I can swim and run fast. But everyone there looked like they belong there. I'm like, they were just, I mean, they're built harder than Chinese algebra, man. They had abs upon abs. Their abs had abs. Yeah. And it looked like they've been training for this. They all look like wrestlers and CrossFitters. But for me, it was like, wow. But after a while, it's like, you know, you see GT SEAL instructor on the shirt, and then you start to understand what it is, and then you're like, oh, wow. But the only thing about it, the SEAL instructors really didn't let you know what the end state was, because so many of you guys were going to quit anyway that it didn't really matter. They didn't start they're not treating you like you're a student or someone that they can actually teach until after Hell Week, because you're going to lose. You lost so many guys, and that, to me, that was my motivation to get there. Because number one, I didn't even belong there in the first place. You know, it's like, which one of these students doesn't belong? This guy.
And it was you, but you made it though.
I did.
But you made it.
I did. You know,
in hindsight, I would argue that you did in fact belong.
I did, yeah. You know, it's that mindset. You know, the biggest war is between your ears when you're there.
Okay, so I'm so glad you said that, because that was actually one. I don't formulate a lot of questions for these, because I like them to come to me. But one that did come to me before our conversation was, I want to know from you. You talk about the abs on the abs. You talk about how everybody looks just cut, you know, and ready to roll. How much of it, though? How much of the whole thing is mental, emotional, like in between, like you said, in between your ears, right? How much of it's that? You
know what? Almost all of it. Because I'm telling you, if you're there, the physical evolutions, I'm telling you, we're not hard. All right? I'm telling you for a fact.
For somebody that's in shape. I mean, it's not like you can I can't show up and be this mental master and get through SEAL training. You have to be in shape. That's a given.
Yeah, you have to be in shape. You know, that's why you're there. I mean, you pass a PRT test. That means in the military, you got to be able to push ups, sit ups, pull ups,
all that,
run and swim in certain time frame. And so you have some
but
sort of.
But you got to have it here.
Yeah, because for me, it was looks. Oh yeah, you have to, because like if you took a single day, especially in first phase, all you did was 3 evolutions a day, and that was it. You did like either
what's an evolution?
A physical evolution. It'd be like log PT, running with the boats, a 2-mile ocean swim, a conditioning run, working in the pool, doing drown proofing. You know, you're only doing about 3 a day, and most of them was like 2 are usually be in the morning, and then 1 will be a long one in the afternoon. So an example would be, okay, you're going to get up at 3:15 in the morning. You're going to do grinder PT. So grinder PT usually went from like 4 to 5, and you got done with that. Then you ran to breakfast, and that's the thing about BUD/S training is your dining facility where you ate was 1.5 miles away. So you're basically there and back is 3 miles, and so you're doing 3 times a day. So that's 9 miles just to go feed your little face. So everything just accumulates.
I love how you say that.
You know,
I love how you even say that. Feed your little face.
And so you got to prep all your boats, because you're going in the afternoon. You're going to be out in boat PT doing that. And so, but you get dropped all the time. You're constantly getting hammered. You know, do anything wrong, you got to do. It's 20 simple push-ups, but you got to get your class together. You start learning teamwork, and then you're wet and sandy all day. You're shivering all day, and you're constantly moving all day long. And so there's no, you know, there's. So physically you can do the evolutions, but it's everything in between, like shivering all day long. People hate being cold. And as soon as that sun starts to break and the marine layer goes away, you start to warm up, you're right into the surf again. And so it's like, it's all day. The one thing he's learned is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And once you have that, and the second thing about the mentally, what we talked about between the ears, is once you started caring about the guy next to you, because that's your boat crew. And if you let them down, then that's a chance for them to get hurt. And that's where you stop thinking about yourself. You stop self-loathing. You stop, woe is me. You stop thinking about how cold you are. Because once you get into your own head and how miserable you are, you go away just like that.
So is that a big piece of it? You have to somehow get to a point where you're overcoming the victim mentality.
Yeah.
You got to get yanked out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you this then. So many people drop out, especially during that Hell Week portion. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are those guys essentially succumbing to that? They're not making it past that piece, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even when I finished out my career as an instructor, everyone there is physically fit, so you can physically make it through, but you make them miserable. Like you're for some reason they trained all along, but they never ran on sand before, and the sand gets to them. The cold gets to a lot of people. Right. And they have a short focus. Okay, short focus. They're having a miserable evolution right now. Like let's say they're running with the boats in their heads for 3 miles, which sucks. They'll get mentally into that, and they'll think about how much it's horrible, and then they'll think, oh, we got to do this again tomorrow and the next day, and then that's what really compounds that. And so you just got to take it one evolution at a time, one meal at a time, and then one boat crew at a time with your guys. And then that's what got me is like all these icemen were quitting, and Goose was still here. It's like, how is this possible?
Yes. So good because Goose has it up here.
He does. And it's almost like when my graduation poem from Buds, hey, there's 2 O's in Goose. There it is. There's 2 O's, so
so
that's
good.
And then of course Hell Week, you lose a lot of guys in the beginning, and then you lose the rest of them in Hell Week. And then, like I said, we started with like 187, and we ended up getting through Hell Week with like 23. And then we finished out first phase and went into second phase. And then we started diving, thank God. I was like, well, about time we get to the part that I was juked into.
That you're excited about, right?
Yeah, and they made that miserable too. So
how many people made it out?
Our graduating class, I think, had like 34 total. And so the average graduating class is between, you can say an average is 30. And then the average class starts with about 180. So, and there's only 6 classes a year, and all it is, it's the toughest military training in the world for a reason, but you can get through it if you just understand, you got to find that comfort. You can't accomplish anything in the comfort zone, right? That's number one. But number two, when you're miserable, make miserable your comfort zone. And then you can start pushing through.
Wow. Well, I get it. I mean, it makes sense to me. There's logic there that I can put together, but I've just never been under those circumstances, and it's hard for me to imagine. So I'm looking through your book. I want to transition a little bit to your book.
Oh,
now.
Cool.
I'm looking through your book. And I know it's a book on photography, but you wrote a lot in this book too, especially at the beginning. And I'm looking through the photographs, and my son, he's 7. He comes up beside me and he's looking at the pictures, and we're both marveling at these images. They're beautiful. And he says, Dad, what is that? I said, these are the Navy SEALs, and I'm gonna get to talk to one of these guys. And he's like, they look really strong. And I said, they are very strong. He's all about his 6-pack right now. He has a 6-pack, and he likes to brag about his 6-pack. He's like, Dad, do you know a lot of guys with a 6-pack? I said, I not know a lot of guys. He goes, do you know any 7-year-olds with a 6-pack? I got one. He likes to tell me all about it. Anyway, he's looking, and he says, do they have to get in the really cold water, Dad? And I said, oh yeah, they got to do a lot more than that. And then we flip to the page where the feet are in the water for the drowning, the drown proofing. And he said, what is that, Dad? And I said, and this is, I like how you set this up. This was so genius, I think. So in all of your images, you have like a little code, a little 2-letter code that shows what part of the training that image was taken from. And I looked down and it says DP. I was like, well, that says DP. So we flip over and I was like, oh, that's drown proofing.
Yes.
His eyes get really big, and my eyes are really big. And so I just wanted to read, because you're actually a really good writer too. That's what struck me.
Thank you very much.
Is how well you wrote. And so I wanted to read this very first part from drown proofing, because you can go through the beginning of the book and see these different sections, right?
Yeah.
And drown proofing, the first paragraph says, I always thought the name drown proofing missed the mark on what the training evolution really is. I believe it should be called panic proofing. Nothing brings out panic in people quite like the removal of air from the equation. All you have to do is swim 100 meters, float for 5 minutes, bob for 5 minutes, bob in between tasks, do a front flip and back flip, then retrieve your mask from the bottom of the pool, all with your hands tied behind your back and your feet tied together in 9 feet of water. Simple.
Hey. No big deal.
It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then at the end you're like, yeah, okay. And then, but your hands and feet are tied together.
So you got that going for you.
But that's the mental piece, isn't it? Isn't that a huge, that's like, to me, that's like a great epitome of the mental piece, right? Because you just can't panic.
No, that's the whole point. It's like, that's why I call it panic proofing. Because, first of all, what does panicking solve? Nothing. Zero. It's just like, it's, I don't know what it is. So, all it is, first of all, thanks for actually reading it,
oh, yeah.
Because at first
it's a good read. It's a good read. Like, the book is there's no question your images are striking. And I just kept looking through them and just looking at each one and kind of immersing in each one. But I started reading it and then I was like, there's a lot of great written content in this book as well.
Thank you. You know what? You're the first one to actually say that. The first ridiculous. One.
Everyone
it's like,
should be.
I'm not kidding you, man. The whole book was going to start out just like my Instagram. It was just going to be, a picture with a little blurb, and that's what we kind of went with. And then as I started doing it, and me and my wife, we started going through it, and we have to start writing about these evolutions. And I started writing, and we went through a very small first publishing house, was called Mascot up in Northern Virginia. They reached out. They reached out to me in Instagram. We started going through it, and they're saying what they wanted, and they're like, then he goes, I'll ghostwrite it for you, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, that's where I'll just write it for you, and I'm like, what? How the hell are you going to know what groundproof? How are you going to know what Hell Week is? Well,
even if he looks it up, he wasn't there. Like, your perspective. I think that's what's so great about it is because not only does it give context to the images, but it's coming from you and your perspective and your experience comes right out, and then you have all of that foundation for the images on top of it. So the images stand really well on their own. That's my point.
Yeah.
But then to have that little code, it's kind of fun. It's because you can look through it and each little code is on each little image, right? And you're like, oh, that's WS. And then you can go through and, well, that means wet and sandy. And then you can read about what wet and sandy is, and it gives more context to the image. And so I just wanted to bring that up along with the fact that the beginning of drown proofing was just that's all mental to me. I kept thinking there's so much mentality that goes into that.
It is, and that's a lot of the evolutions are like that, because the first thing, because you got to remember, in the end state of being a SEAL, you're going to be a war fighter. You're going to go overseas, and people are going to try to kill you, and bullets going to be over your head. So we have to teach you. You have to change your mindset. It's number one. You can never quit. You can adapt and overcome adversity and work through it. But also, you're going to be put in situations that no other humans are meant to be in. And so how do we start that process? And that process is simple with the water. It's like a simple removal of air, like stay down and do small not only you have to make water your friend, but also you have to be able to problem solve in it. You have to be able to think in it. You have to be able to move in it. And so little things like knot time, you go down there, you got to tread water at 15 feet, the instructor's sitting there and he's watching you tread water, and you watch you tread water, and he goes, okay, go down and tie me a Bowen knot. And you're like, okay, hold your breath. You swim all the way down, you tie your Bowen knot, and then you give them an okay. And then we'll take their time looking at it, to make sure, get every angle, and you're waiting for the thumbs up, and you're like, you're doing a funky chicken, and then they're like, thumbs up, and then you're like, okay, yes, and you untie it, and then
you have to be down there that whole time.
Oh yeah, you're just waiting there while inspecting your knot,
check it.
Yeah, and they're up. We're up high, man. And when I was an instructor, when I was a student, they're up high. They're just watching, and then as soon as you're done, then they swim down, do the little check, and then you you get to the surface like, and then you tread water some more, and they're like, okay, go down and give me a right angle. You're like, and do it again.
Go back down again.
Yeah, and
that's
it's little evolutions like that, and then you like the jump proofing evolutions, 50-meter an hour swim, and of course you're swimming, and then in second phase, we got pool comp and things like that. So we're always being challenged mentally and physically in small little panic situations.
There's no bell on the other side of the pond, is there? When you get there, on the other side of it, when you get out and you're in it, there's no bell.
Nope, you're done. I mean, you had your, you
had that chance. That chance is gone.
Yeah, and once you are a SEAL, most people, they're not going to quit. I mean, a lot of people find that after they're doing the job, they don't find out maybe, I like this job, but it's just not for me, and then they'll get out or do other things. So
but I was even thinking back to what you said before, and this really struck me for whatever reason, is like from a mental standpoint, even like you get through a day of Hell Week, but you're thinking to yourself, I got to do this tomorrow. I got to do it the next day. I got to do it. And if you carry that through to its conclusion, you got to think to yourself, I'm going to get to the point, if I keep doing this, where that bell goes away.
Yeah.
And I don't have the option to tap out when I'm on the other side of the world. Right. And those bullets are flying over my head. Like, that's where this is going. And at that point, like, what you're going through and what you're struggling with is in relative sense, almost nothing. Yeah. Because then there's no bell.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that point is, here's this funny thing, in our, no more society that knows that SEALs exist, but people also know about Hell Week. And there's two misconceptions about when people's mind about Hell Week. And number one, they think you're SEALs after Hell Week. And you're like, and you're all done. I'm like, nah, not even close. Right. That's week number 4, bub. You got 22 more weeks to go, plus another year of SEAL qualification training, and then another year work up with your SEAL platoon, whatever SEAL team you get to. So you're looking at 2.5 years even before you go. That's week 4. Okay. So, but also Hell Week is not the hardest week of training. It's another bamboozle effect. Because even though you're 5.5 days of no sleep, doing constant evolution, but you get to eat 4 times a day, so that's yay. But of course, that adds on 3 more miles, and that's 12 miles a day, just eating with a boat on your head. So you got that.
Putting food in your face.
Putting food in your fat little face.
Your little face.
Which is like, and you can't even sit down when you're eating either. But here's the thing. You don't quit. Like, that's the big thing. You made it through Hell Week. You didn't quit Hell Week, and you made it through. Yeah. It's like, good. Yeah. We just tricked you, because the second phase, I thought second phase dive week, Draeger Hell Week was worse than Hell Week. I thought doing planning missions in third phase, and the island was harder than freaking Hell Week. But you made it through Hell Week, so that means you're not going to quit, because now we're making shit harder. And so they trick you. You get that never. They get that never quit attitude.
It's the mental piece again.
Yeah.
It's the mental piece again.
Oh, yeah,
all right, so let me do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm super intrigued, because here's the other piece that I read that I thought was really great.
Thank you. Someone that read it. That's awesome. I can't get over that. Well, I've never gotten anyone, and like, this is the 3rd printing now. Two printings we had. We had 2,250 of them print, sold out. Second one, self-printed, 1,000 of them sold out. Now this one went to Grand Central Publishing. Thank you. Like the people with the long pants in the room decided to pick it up. Okay, this guy's doing a book and we're not involved, and it's a good book. Okay, we need to take care of this.
We need to.
You're the only one that's read it. You're the only one that comes back and says, I don't even think Admiral McCraven read it. He gave it a review, and he just, the pictures are stunning. It's like, well. So anyway, I love talking to you. Thanks.
Well, they are stunning, but if people aren't reading what you wrote, then they're really missing out. I mean, that's all there is to it. What I would like you to do for me is take me through the very beginning of your introduction. You talk about being on that C-130, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when, for you have this epiphany, right? So at that point, you're an instructor, right? And you're getting ready to essentially shove somebody out of a plane and then go with them. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm getting. But right before that, and then into that, you see the sky, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happened then? Like, is that really like in your mind when things started to transition and you started to think, I need to capture this.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make this so that other people can see it through my eyes and get a sense of what this is.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. It's exactly what happened, and how I got there is it's called a seashore rotation. Okay. That means you're supposed to do 5 years of deploying in the Navy, and then you get 2 years of a short duty, which is basically you stay home and then you learn an advanced tactic of something that we can need because you need the break.
Right.
My rotation was 10 years. So I got to be a military freefall instructor, because I went through military freefall jump master. And that was the things that was given to me because I was good at skydiving. And I ended up in Yuma, Arizona. And I went through, and that whole pipeline is long. You have to do the advanced military free fall course, which is equivalent of over 200 plus jumps, and then you get to be instructor on the floor for another year teaching students because, you're jumping out of the airplane. You have to be proficient and you have to be able to fly. You have to be able to think while you're flying to take care of the student. Anyway, it was all that. And so at that point, I'm already a basic parachutist, military free fall, advanced military free fall. At that point, I ended up being military free fall instructor and the military free fall instructor evaluator. And then I started shooting video. I was a video guy because it's the only way you're going to learn in free fall is your instructor. You're flying, the instructor's above you, and then you're above the instructor, video and everything. Because when they get down on the ground, the instructor's going to tell you, hey, you need to bend your knees. This was why you're backsliding. You're doing this. You physically can't see it. But when you show the video, it's like, oh, I see what I did wrong. And that's why we're kind of like the training tool up there.
So you're shooting video to document the process to be used for instruction.
Yeah, for student critique.
Right.
So every student gets at least 2 videos throughout their time there. And then that's how they learn. And we just cycle through each one of them. And so one morning, because where I was in the rotation, I never really got that first lift in the morning, that 5:15 one, because I always went from the lighter students all the way to the heavier students. As I was more in the 40 range. So student 1 through 20 would be in the first lift. 20. By the time my lift came, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. So we just do all our stuff and take a nap in the video room or do what we're doing. But I distinctly remember that first lift that we were first. Like, oh shit, this is what it's like being first. We joked about it. Right. And then we flew up, and then all of a sudden, my students with me, and I got my video on, and ramp opens, and there it was, man. The sun is just barely peeking up and just painted the desert in all these different colors. And to me, it was just beautiful. I mean, I told my student, I'm like, we're literally standing on the ramp, 16,000 feet up, looking down, and it's like, oh man. And he's like, it's like, it's his first jump. And I got my hand on him. I'm like, damn, look how beautiful this is, dude. You're getting paid for this. This is freaking awesome. And he's just looking at me going, you freaking weird. It's like, look at that. It's stunning. Okay, go. Slap him and he bumbles out.
This is so beautiful. And he's peeing himself because he's got to jump out of the plane.
I know. And there's me just this like, woo, this is beautiful, man. I feel like I'm the dude at this point. Oh, dude, it's beautiful, man.
You're just abiding. You're just abiding, and he's scared out of his mind.
He is.
That's so perfect.
And then it was just beautiful. The reds, the oranges. And I just was thinking to myself, man, somebody should take a picture of this. This is really cool. Yeah. And then I landed and then went up again. And that really resonated in my head. And none of us had photography. It was all just videos. So that's what started the journey. It's like, well, crap. If I want to take a photo, I guess I got to learn how. So
that's what got you into photography to begin with.
Yeah.
You weren't a photographer up until that point, but that's what really got you into photography.
Yeah. Yep. And then
and so then you decide to learn photography, but then you go back to training to document with that express purpose to document SEAL training?
No, there's a big long gap in there.
There's a gap. Tell me about that.
That was the end state. Yeah, there's a huge gap because that gap that was 2007. The Buds Photography 2016. So that's a huge gap in there. So
what happened in there?
Yeah. Oh, I had to go back to being a SEAL. I had to deploy again. I had to
for real?
Multiple deployments. I mean, it was so that out of the Yuma was only 3 years, And so then from there, I went to a joint task force out in the Middle East, and I was there for like 2 years. And then, I deployed with SEAL Team 1, 3, and 5, came back. Then I did another SEAL deployment, which is like 2 years with SEAL Team 3. But I kept photography going. But I learned photography out in Yuma, and I was self-taught. Now, here, this is something interesting. You'll like this. This is how I learned photography. Is I started Googling it. So I Googled photography, and digital photography come up, and how cameras. And so it's like, so I'm taking notes, right? I'm writing down, okay, digital. What? There's no film. It's digital. What does that mean? You know. And I'm doing all this, and finally, but every article that I read about photography and what it is always said, well, in the digital darkroom, you'll be doing this. And I was like, well, crap, now I got to learn that. What's the hell's that? You know? And so this is months. I mean, this took months to do. And so I'm still instructor, still videoing everything, but I'm learning photography in the end. And then I'll like, you know, at that point I was married with children. I was actually unhappily married with kids. That means I was broke. So I would actually go into Barnes and Noble, send my kids over to the children's section, and I would sit there at the digital photography section, and I have my little green notebook from the SEAL teams, and I'm like, one of them was my dive log, and I'm like, okay, all right, Shift Alt Delete, color space, you know,
really?
Adobe 1998. What the hell is that? All right. You know, so I guess that's something, huh? You know, so this is how I'm learning. So I go home, I Google it and everything else. And so I start, now I don't have money to buy a camera or anything, but something very, very interesting happened. I bought a very used version of a how-to for Photoshop CS, because I learned everything that you need a digital darkroom. And so I've got that, big notepads, note cards, and I learned, and it's just like college. I just sat there. It's like, and I took it from basics. It's like, okay. And I went through all the CDs and learned stuff. And then of course, then CS2 came out. So I had to learn that. And so remember, I learned how to digitally edit a photo before I even took a photo, but I learned backwards. So I'm learning what histograms are. I'm learning what color space is. I'm learning the numbers. I'm learning resolution. I'm learning size. I'm like to be, you know, when I first got my camera, I knew what a histogram was. I could look outside and I knew what the highlights were. I knew what the shadows were. I knew that it's like numerically I can see the numbers, because that's what I was used to learning for like 5 months was that. So I finally got my first Canon 20D, I believe, 30D. You know, of course I drilled it onto the helmet, bite plates, everything else, set it. And I was, you know, of course at that point I learned, it's like, I'm skydiving, so I'm putting the thing on TV, you know, because I want my shutter to stay at a minimum 500 or 800. Sure. And so, but then I'm figuring out everything because I did it backwards. So once I got the images, I knew exactly what to do. So that was actually good that I learned it backwards. And so then that's what made the editing process a lot easier for me. I think
it worked for you. It worked for you, and it made sense for you, actually, in hindsight, even to do it that way. Yeah,
and I think most photographers, when people start photography nowadays, they do these. They'll buy the camera first, look at the back of the LCD screen, like, oh, look at that, freaking awesome, you know.
Everybody buys the camera first. Yeah. That's what they're all excited about, is the camera.
Yeah, and then you got to realize there's other things you got to do. So
there's other stuff.
I had a digital darkroom workflow before I had a camera. So, but anyway, so that's how I learned. And of course, my first shots were all in air photography, all a skydive photography with the reds. And I finally got the photography that I wanted. But anyway, I had to share that with you. I know it was long and drawn out, but that's how I started. And then
it's very interesting, actually.
And then I kept with it. And then of course I had to go back to SEAL teams and, you know, deploy. And I had my camera with me, always learning. Went back and forth, and then finally, you get good enough at something. And for me, wherever I went, people kind of knew me as like the air god photographer, because at that point I was like, I had the most jumps. I had photography that was already, you know, in Wilcox magazines and parachutists and Active Valor did all those air scenes. So I was known as the guy, and so then people, hey, take a picture of me. I'm like, what? All right. You know, so that was kind of like the thing that I got attached to.
That's what I was wondering, because here's the book. This is what it looks like, and it's going to come up backwards probably. But I was wondering, when you go into these scenarios, and especially for this book in particular, do they want you there? Like, these guys are going through hell. And a couple of your images, you really got them. They're like looking at you. And one guy in particular, he's kind of looking at you. And in my mind, I'm like, what's that dude thinking? Is he thinking, man, I would just take that guy out right now? Or is he thinking is he honored to be captured by, like, where's he at mentally at the time? Do they want you there, or are they resenting that you're there, or where are they at with that?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't know. You know,
that is an honest answer.
I couldn't even give you, because, you know, I'm a SEAL instructor at this point. You know, you know, this is the latter half of the last year and a half of my career.
Right.
And the same guy that asked me to do Active Valor was actually working, which is called our SEAL Scout team, which basically they go out and recruit kind of like college ball players. They recruit athletes that they think can be Navy SEALs. And he was working there, and I went to him, and he had an idea that he knew my photography. And he thought that all the photos and everything around the Buds compound and Naval Special Warfare should be updated. And he liked my style. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'll do that. That's fine with me. So, you know, and then when we started doing it, you know, we'd show up in a big truck with SEAL Scout on the side. I had my SEAL instructor shirt on, and, you know, I'm a SEAL, so no one's going to, like, you know, none of the students, they don't freaking know any better. And so, and that's how that whole process started. And a lot of them are like in your face, but I know the one you're talking about is I actually had 100 to 400, like, but I tried to be out of the way as much as possible.
Sure. That makes sense.
But it was command initially. It was a big command thing. So it was leadership that had really, really good initiative and good vision. And it was a lot of fun to do, but for the most part, I tried to stay out of the way. Like, a lot of them in the water, I'll be with them. A lot of the log PT that happens all the time, I'll kind of be offset a little bit. It's very rarely that I would actually get in their face. That's because I really wanted a close up. So I'll get like my 14 millimeter, put it on top of the log and walk away, because you don't want to interrupt the evolution that's going on so much that now they're kind of confused, because they see a SEAL instructor there. So their butt is already tight. They're doing this evolution. They're miserable. You don't want like a camera in your face. And I had enough wherewithal.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Right. I had enough wherewithal to say, you know what, but I always had the ability to going to make it through, like enjoying what they were doing, and they're really fired up. And those are the guys that I would go to, because they were happy to see me. Hey, Instructor McBurnett. I'm like, yeah, don't talk to me. You know, I'm like, so I'm still trying to be mean. You're like, but I was goose, man. I wasn't a mean instructor. I was like, you know, like, you get the instructors, they're like, go hit the surf, yelling at them, everything else. And,
well, but let me ask you that piece too, because I'm interested about that.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have to be a certain way, right? You have to have this persona in those situations. But inside, even if you're like on the outside, inside, aren't you? Do you feel different than what you're acting like sometimes? Or you have like
100%.
You have an appreciation. You have a respect. You feel good when they know who you are and they want you there, but you can't act. You can't act like it, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. I had the same thing when I went through Buds. I had my favorite instructors, Instructor Elsterman.
Right.
That guy was like, still to this day, just a great inspiration, a great leader. But he was funny. God, he was so freaking funny. And he was funny in a way that is like, is this guy serious? You know, but
you don't know.
I don't know how to react to this guy. But he was awesome. And that was the instructor you wanted. So, like, you know, I always say to people, you want to be, you know, like a leader or teacher, you know, instructs. Like, a good teacher shows, a superior teacher demonstrates, and a superior leader will inspire, you know. And he had that unique ability to inspire just by the stupid little sayings that he would say. The guys, when I came around, people were like, you could see it in their eyes, but I didn't want them to be out of the evolution. So I would, like, you know, just kind of be myself, but I wouldn't be mean. I'm like, is that, like, I see him doing half-ass push-ups in the sand. I'm like, really? Is that, would Chuck Norris be proud of you right now for doing that push-up? You know? And then look at me and like, no, Chuck Norris wouldn't. Well, then why don't you take imaginary Chuck Norris out to the surf zone, come on back, and then try it again? You know, so things like that that I would do. And then I would take the picture while they're doing it. So
that's so good. You know, me think I need to get this shot now.
Yeah, it's
All
like,
right,
oh,
let
I
me
got that shot.
let me finish with this. I have one last question for you. Moving forward,
Oh, absolutely.
like as you know, kind of your next adventure, so to speak. How important is photography to you now, moving forward into where you're going to go next and what you're going to do next? Like, is photography, has it become a bigger part of your life now? Is that something that you want to integrate more into what you're doing? Where are you at with that?
That is a fantastic. God, you know how to ask the great questions. It's fantastic. Another thing I don't really know. To me, like I said, right now, photography. I believe it or not, I don't do it very much. My last big paid gig I did was with Nike, and that was a lot of fun. But what I want to do with photography is when we start going back to conferences and things like that, somehow I'd like to break in to the photography conference arena, because I want to tell my story. And whenever I've only been to like 2 or 3 photo conferences. One of the big one was Photoshop in Vegas. I'm going to that one.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone's got their own little thing and they're teaching this and that. But there's always like one keynote, and he was like a story. I think here I went. It was like Joe McNally talking. And he's like, he tells a story. And for me, I would love to get out there and talk about my story, because I'm one of one. I'm like a unicorn. It's like it's like I'm the only Navy SEAL to ever photograph or authorized photographer SEAL training. Only one to start photographing in the air, went to the SEAL training. The only one to have a book out that has this that's authorized, documented, and no one has that. But the journey to that point, even learning photography, learning in there, and I have the videos. I have like I even had it all written out of how I would how my mindset of a Navy SEAL. How I did photography too. So like big thing is like taking care of your gear that'll take care of you. When you're overseas, you got to take care of your gear. You got to take care of your body armor, everything else. And the same thing with photography. You got to take care of your gear, because if you're making a living at it, then you have to take care of it. And this is how I took care of it. Another aspect is don't get highly involved with emotion. Don't let emotion take over. And I've seen that before, especially when we're doing missions. We get hyped to get emotion, but also in the photography realm, I've physically seen. I've done it myself. You're getting emotional trying to get this shot, and then all of a sudden you lose focus, and it's attention to detail, and you end up screwing stuff up. Little things like that I've really put together, and I'd like to tell the story. I think the story people would gravitate to, because it's a very, very unique story. Nobody has it. And then it's just something that will inspire people. It's like, hey, no matter what you're doing, here's the guidelines that I had, that I went by. And if you could take something away and make a difference with it, then I think that's what I'd like to do.
I would highly encourage you to pursue that, and to pursue more writing too.
I did like the writing. The writing was fun, man. But thank you. Appreciate that.
It's very well done. It's Uncommon Grit. I'm telling you, let's see here. It's backwards, but we'll throw a little piece in there. It's a phenomenal book.
Thank you so much.
Both in imagery and in writing. If you get the book, read it. Make sure you read it too. Don't just look at the images. You'll get a lot more out of it. McBee, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this with me, and I look forward to being in one of your first convention seminars as I sit there and listen to you tell your story.
Thank you so much for having me. People can get the book, uncommongritbook.com. Yes. They can go to my my Instagram, which started the whole thing, McTeams3842. I don't know if you want to put that up somewhere. We will put all that stuff up. But I appreciate your time, man. I mean, this whole thing has been really, really cool. And I get to talk about photography for a change, which is really exciting. But thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's been a great time.
Thanks, man. Have a wonderful day. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.